Hello folks, this is Craig Lane with Health Alchemy and our YouTube channel videos. We're starting out our video with wound-worts. Today's a wound-wort theme, and this is a scarlet runner bean flower, just starting off with. It's so lovely. So wound-worts it's an old word for an herb that was in the mint family, stachys, S-T-A-C-H-Y-S, stachys. And so if you look up wound-wort, like in Google, you'll see this sort of rhetoric about this plant, stachys, but a wound-wort, W-O-R-T, by the way, and there's a link at the bottom of this video that will give you access to a document where you can look at these. But wound-worts are here to heal wounds, primarily. So you've got physical wounds, you've got emotional and psychic wounds, but these plants generally are better for physical wounds. There are other plants for psychic and emotional wounds. So we're going to start off with, since we're sitting here in front of comfrey. This is comfrey here, and you can see these gigantic leaves. So, I mean, look at the size of that leaf. It gives you a sense of how big these leaves are. And this plant's in the ground. When they're not in the ground, see the size of that leaf right there. It's gigantic, folks. See, it's like 2 or 3 of my hands. That's a healthy soil, a healthy plant. So comfrey is a plant that is, it accelerates tissue growth. So it's very good on wounds, and you can take this and bruise it, chop it up and bruise it, and then put it topically on shallow wounds, not deep wounds, because it heals the surface level. This herb literally increases tissue growth rate. So this is an herb that's specific for bleeding of any sort, internal bleeding, ulcers, lung bleeding, rectal bleeding, vaginal bleeding, urinary bleeding of any sort. So this is a great plant, and it's definitely in the wound-wort category. So when you hear that word wort, it just means herb. So this is a wound herb. You hear the word wort. So it's a wound herb, and there's some different angles of comfrey. The other comfrey is more over here, and you can see the flowers. And I hear this is a Russian comfrey, symphytum. And you can look on the document for more details about all this, but comfrey is really, I use it more internally than externally. And that sort of goes against the established rhetoric. But as the pyridinosyl alkaloids go, which is the toxicity factor, the rat study, the rats were fed, a third of their diet was comfrey leaves, which is kind of unfair. And different forms of comfrey had more or less of it, but I have never had a problem with toxicity or liver problems. And I took it every day for 4 years. That's right, every day for 4 years to disprove that theory that it's toxic. One of my clients healed her, not a client, but a woman on the web healed her cat and herself's bone cancer with comfrey. So I should tell you something, folks. You don't listen to established rhetoric, because the plant's free. And particularly this plant increases tissue growth. It's a really important plant for healing. And so, not my number 1 wound-wort. We're going to go over that right now. It's probably number 3 or 4 on the list. Yarrow and Plantain are the top 2. So we'll go to yarrow here, and we'll go to plantain here. And you can see there's a lot of healing plants, but this is broadleaf plantain here, back there. See these giant, another plant in the ground. See, I rescued these from a park down the street. They were really struggling, and they were barely getting above ground level, and they would hack off all this stuff with the lawnmower, and then the plant would still find a way to grow and reproduce, despite all that. There's a nice looking leaf right there, really. So you notice, plantain's one of those few herbs you see the parallel veins with the length of the leaf. You don't see that, like in that one, see? Not parallel, not parallel. So it's a very rare kind of leaf where you see the parallel. And plantain's very astringent, and that's the quality you're looking for in your wound-wort. Astringency does this. So if you have a wound that's open like that, it does that and seals it up. Like when you suck on a lemon, your mouth puckers, and that's what puckering is the basis of wound-worts. You want to pucker the skin, and if you can't get anything, burnt hair is an option, and so is, you can burn your own hair, and so is oak bark. You can take bark or leaves from the oak tree and boil those up, or you could try and mash them a little bit. So plantain's used for a lot of other things, but we'll stick to just giving you an ID for it, what it looks like. And it's very good for mucus in the intestines, very good for liver heat. It's just one of those herbs, like, you know, you gotta use it a lot, but it's very good for colitis and very good for mucus, and I can't recommend it enough. Liver problems, eye problems. So then you can see the seed heads too. these seed heads here. See, the birds really like the seeds. This is where plantain is where psyllium comes from. Plantago psyllium. So you can notice all these seed heads here. And there's another version of the narrow leaf plantain here. See, this is the narrow leaf plantain. And the seed heads here. There's a bee that comes around, and the bee comes around and just loves these flower heads. A little wood bee. He buzzes around. So that's plantain. The next one's yarrow, which one of my teachers says it was his favorite herb. His top favorite herb, if you can only grow one herb, it would be this plant, yarrow. Lots of magic associated with this plant. You can see a little bee right there. He's kind of hanging out. And it's interesting, he appeared when I said a magical plant, and then that little tiny wasp appeared. So this is yarrow, and see, Achilles millefolium. So Achillea, or Achilles' heel, Achilles was using this in Greece. And people that were soldiers, and they knew about it thousands of years ago as healing wounds. So you can take the flower head here, you can take the leaf, you can take the root. Plant's very easy to use. And so I had a wound on this finger here. There's that finger. Had a wound on this. See if I can get that in the screen there. Right on the end of that finger there. Can't really see it. It healed up so well. See it right there. You see that little edge. So I was getting ready to do some picking on some rock for at a friend's place called Heartland Institute, and cut the hell out of my finger by cutting too much St. John's wort, and then there was literally gushing blood out of that finger, and I put yarrow right here on it and some plantain, chewed it up with my mouth, stuffed it on the wound, there was nothing I could use, so I got an old piece of plastic and washed it off, and an old piece of baling wire from the garden, and I proceeded to use my hands for an hour, and the pain went away and the bleeding stopped instantly as soon as I put it on. So I just can't say enough about this plant, yarrow. It's in the flowering form here. And see how it grows up. When it's younger, it stays close to the ground, like all of that you see here. So there's the yarrow when it grows up, but when it doesn't get enough space, it stays close to the ground, and the flowers might not rise that high up. Yarrow is really good for bleeding, but it's also good for moving stagnant blood. It has pretty much every phytochemical compound in nutrition in it, including eugenol that you see in the cloves. So it's going to be very good for any kind of stagnancy, very good for bleeding, very good. It's not necessarily, I don't consider it a tonic. I consider it a bit drying myself. Other herbalists might not agree with me, so I don't use it nutritionally per se. I use it as an adjunct with other nutritional herbs to move them along like a carminative, although I do think it has some carminative properties too. If you're ever stuck, colds and flus, digestive problem, menstrual problems, this is a good herb. If you're stuck, this is a good one just to go to, but it will dry them out generally, so you want to watch signs of dryness, and that's another video. So that's yarrow. Third one is Prunella vulgaris, or self-heal, and it's flowering right now, so I can't tell you how awesome it is to see how the beauty of this little flower, this plant, it almost looks like an orchid, see, Prunella vulgaris. So you can use the leaf here, you can use the flower, although the flowers are said to be the most medicine. I would say that this plant, if you look at the way it looks compared to yarrow and plantain, this one's going to be way more cooling on the liver. You notice the dark purple flowers. Blue and purple flowers generally, it's said, has a tendency for blood impurities. So this would be for the person that's got liver heat signs, blood impurities, probably some toxicity signs in lab work. And you really, really want to, and this plant will also stop bleeding. So that's what they're all known for. Remember, this is what this is all about, and you can read about it in the description, at the description link. Very, very important plant in Chinese medicine and in Western medicine. And just look how lovely it is too. I planted this and it was way back over here growing. So it grew out about a foot. That's about a foot from here to here is about a foot. You can see my hand. And so this thing grew out from over here by this stick and sent a runner out. See these runners here, they'll land and then they'll root. Or it'll send a runner underground and come up. But generally, it's a very fast spreading plant. Very invasive, but a very good invasive because it's really easy to weed. You can literally just yank this out or pull it out. I don't want to yank anymore. So self-heal has a lot of reputation and pretty well-known herb in my field. I just don't think many people use it internally. You know, thinking about using it as a wound-wort externally and skin plant, but it has less of the astringency than the other. Plantain and yarrow have more astringency, and this plant, I'm chewing it up right now, seems to have less of that. A little more of a laxative, slimy, mucilaginous effect. We looked at comfrey, and we got to the self-heal. The last one's calendula. And the calendula season's almost over here. Here's some yellow ones. You can see the calendula flowers. I consider calendula more of an herb for the skin for burns, but it does work for bleeding too as a wound-wort, and was known as such. And there's a nice plantain right there. That's a really lovely plantain example. So that's calendula, and you can see there's a lovely closing up with the sun, yellow flower. Let's see if there's any others. Yeah, they seem to have missed most of the calendula this year. Calendula is an early spring plant. Calendula is there's another small one, very, very good herb for blood impurities and lymphatic stagnation. And self-heal, the last one, is also very good for lymphatic swelling. So if you have a lymphatic problem, you can also use this plant, the calendula or the self-heal for lymphatic swelling, swollen lymph nodes in the throat, armpits, groin. This is an excellent plant. You can put it on topically. You can take it orally. Very safe to use. And there's other wound-worts you're going to hear about that I haven't really focused on in my practice, but one of them is goldenrod. I don't have it growing in my garden, so I can't show you, but you can look up goldenrod. And the last one I am growing is called wood betony. Wood betony, it's in that mint family. Doesn't really taste like mint, but we do have a sample of it over here. Wood betony. Here's a flower of it right here. Just a super, super lovely plant. It's wood betony. Very lovely plant. So right on this plant, it's growing down, not real large rootstock, but it's growing down there amongst the other plants. You can kind of see the leaves look like this right here. And now we're at the 12-minute point, so we're going to end this video. And I'm going to thank you for watching Wound-worts and for helping yourself make a better planet, make a better world by using plant medicine, which has the resources of the entire universe associated with it, and stopping bleeding and stuff like that versus stopping bleeding with poisons and going into surgery and being at the mercy of toxic medicines. So this is your medicine, folks. And to end this video, I'll give you a broad swath of the garden. There's just so many beautiful plants to talk about. And there's the sort of the broad swath. The lighting's not perfect, but pretty close. So you'll see this backyard was a weed-infested garden just 4 or 5 months ago. And look at the beauty that you too could have in less than a few months if you apply the right principles. Thanks, folks. Goodbye.